Alrighty, here we go. At least hope it's going. So let me quickly check, make sure that the audio on my end is coming through nice and good. Yes, there we are. That's what I like to hear. Perfect, perfect, awesome. Well, hi there, everyone. Say, I know that I didn't announce this live stream earlier. I didn't know if I'd be able to do it or not until things started playing out just so earlier this afternoon. And I kind of wanted to do this to see if it is indeed possible for me to do these live streams a little bit more regularly. I have already found that, oh boy, it eats up time. It eats up time to do this kind of stuff. So we'll see how regularly we're able to do these. But I really did want to do back last anime season. I really wanted to try to kind of have like weekly updates on how different shows were doing and everything. Report and say, hey, yeah, we've been watching. Things have been going. It's been interesting. This is what we've seen. This is what's been cool, and kind of have those conversations with you. If you'd also watch those shows, or if you wanted to know more about them, get some writing insights, interact with us here on the Harem, and all of that. And it's just kind of taken a while to try to find a groove, and it's hard to find a groove to do live streaming on the regular. I know there's some channels that absolutely dedicate themselves to that, and I don't know if I could sit down in a chair for all that long. But in any case, welcome. Hi there, Tevin. Welcome, Edits. Great to have you both right here. And because I'm wondering, I'm honestly wondering if the little bit of clickbaity thumbnail will actually bring a few more people on in. I'm going to hold off just a little bit on talking about Hazbin Hotel just for a little bit to see who all comes on in, because that was kind of one of the big things I saw really going down today, watching some bad takes about Hazbin Hotel. I want to have a chance to kind of talk about that a little bit before I then segue on over into some of the stuff I've been seeing with anime this week, as well as how writing is going, and some writing advice and some insights I've gotten this week. Actually, this week has been phenomenal for that kind of stuff. Hey there, Ryan. Glad to see that you are here. So, before I move the footage on over to Hazbin Hotel and we start talking about that, I'll give actually a pretty brief update right here about something that was neat that happened for me and for the Harem this week. So we got a new person who jumped onto our Discord server who is trying to pitch her book to editors and to publishers. And querying a book is so dang difficult. Well, she was posting bits about her, like to the opening for her story. I had a chance to like read through that, have a little bit of feedback. I actually had some feedback in regards to like how to reword certain things, but then I had to stop. I had to stop myself, read through everything, and find out that yeah, I know what the wording is good. Man, what a word salad I've got right here. Suffice it to say, as an editor myself, as someone who looks to see how other people can improve their works, and for anyone who's helping anyone else out with trying to improve their own stories, I'll say this: don't immediately jump on every single little problem that you see, because sometimes something that doesn't work out really well for you actually ends up being pretty good for the book. So, like for instance, the opening, this woman is at a funeral. She's looking down into the grave. I would have used a slightly different word choice, but I held off a little bit and read all the way through, and then found out that actually no, the word choice was beautifully deliberate for delivering a very depressing opening, which is what you would expect at a funeral, which then led to a really fantastic twist. But for myself, so then I was like, sweet, well, you've posted that, I'm going to post something I'm working on. And oh boy, did I get feedback. And I'll just say this: for anyone who's writing a story, you need to have a writing group. You need to get feedback, and you need to act upon that feedback. Don't get affronted Whenever someone's like, it's not working for you, this doesn't seem really good. Two people are like, Lars, you're using way too much onomatopoeia in your book right here, at least for this moment, which you're trying to build up the tension and everything. I like onomatopoeia, which is putting in sound, writing out the way that things sound within your story. I like that. I find that to be really, really neat to get you kind of thinking, what does that feel like, sound like, look like, taste like as I'm reading all of this? But it doesn't always work really for everyone else. And as it was pointed out to me, it really broke up the tension and not in a good way because I was trying to write a horror moment. And then also getting some feedback of like, Lars, if you're trying to connect with your audience, maybe tone it back a little bit on some stuff. And I'll actually hold off some of those details for another time because that in and of itself is its own insane story, and I kind of want to be further along in the book and more prepared to share with you guys those grisly details. So here from Devin, I haven't watched Solo Leveling, but I am watching the Dungeon Cooking anime and the Frieren show. Oh yeah. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Delicious in Dungeon tonight because man, that has been a wild ride. I will be doing a video for that in the future. And for Frieren, I have a video coming out tomorrow about Frieren, which is going to be, I hope, really good. And also, your second draft is nearing completion. One more chapter in the epilogue, and then it's finished. Congratulations, Tevin. Excellent job right there. Being able to get through the rough draft alone is already pretty rough. A lot of work goes into that. But when you're able to get through that second draft, oh my gosh, it feels so good. So congratulations, Tevin, on making it so far. Keep up the good work, and it will pay off. And let's see here. And one more thing before I switch us on over to good old Hazbin Hotel. Scott's got a video coming out not tonight or tomorrow. He's hoping to get it out on Sunday, reviewing the latest episode of Solo Leveling. I will have my thoughts out about that tonight, but I'm going to leave him to deliver his own thoughts and everything. Scott does an excellent job of delivering very concise and insightful reviews and analyses. And so I'm going to let him really have his moment, and I will take my pedantic moment tonight. Welcome, ISO. Good to have you here. So with that all being said, we're now in about almost 8 minutes. So let's switch gears on over to Hazbin Hotel. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, Hazbin Hotel has recently come out. At least the next episode. It's now airing on Amazon. I've been in that group of people who've really been looking forward to this. And right off the bat, if this isn't a show for you, that is absolutely fine. Like, I don't think that anyone should be spoken down to, should be teased or mocked for not liking this show. In fact, actually, within the harem itself, I'm the only one who has actually watched any of the stuff from VisiPop. Everyone else, either the subject content is not quite up their alley, it's not their cup of tea, or the animation puts them off because they are looking for way more refined animation than what you get right here. So I understand, and I'm not going to mock anyone for not liking that. That being said, oh boy, I don't know if any of you keep up with the channel WDW Pro. I actually really like the channel, and no one here should go on out and attack these guys for their bad hot take on this show, and especially on this episode. In fact, actually, I would recommend that people go and watch them for the most part because they have excellent reviews and analyses about things that are happening in Hollywood and about movies, like what's right now happening currently with film, the production of film. They've got really excellent insight, and they have a really good success rate with scoops as well. So I recommend them. However, just because a channel is good, just because they've got great stuff they can provide, doesn't mean that they are free from having bad hot takes. So, oh man, I had to talk about this, especially because later this afternoon they tried to backtrack and be all like, no, 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 we weren't saying anything bad. Or we were just talking about how Amazon is probably going to regret airing this. And I was just like, oh, shut up. So, effectively, right here, Hazbin Hotel is about the Princess of Hell trying to rehabilitate sinners, get them out of hell and up to heaven, so that way hell is not overpopulated, leading to heaven having to each year send in an army to exterminate a certain number of demons and sinners in order to keep hell from overflowing and thereby becoming too powerful. So it's actually like a pretty straight up premise, and the pilot is hilarious in my opinion. I enjoyed it, and oh my gosh, I stuck around because of Alistair. I love this demon. I love this sinner. He is he hits all of the right buttons for me of just being a hilarious yet totally sinister, totally serious, straight man, and he has all the chill and yet no chill at the same time. I just love Alistair. And it's a fun premise, and even if you don't like the animation, it's great to see what people can do with basically an indie budget. And sure, A24 helped to produce this show, giving them way more budget than they would have had just surviving off of YouTube ad revenue and support. But yet you can still see the indie quality right there on the screen, and it flows excellently. As Ryan Phillips says right here, I'm a big fan of the 2020 pilot, and I've been strongly anticipating the series, so I'm definitely not the type to make fun of Hazbin Hotel enjoyers. Yeah, say there's this is something a lot of people have been looking forward to. Now then, what did the people over at WDW Pro have to say about this? Well, they were all like, what? Oh, they had a clutch the pearls moment, clutch their pearls. So it was like, oh my, not in my good Christian Amazon, where they were all like, how dare Amazon support a satanic show, this Satanist show, and they went so overboard. Had they even done a modicum of research before this, they were talking about this as the very first episode. Anyone who has seen anything about Hazbin Hotel knows that this is the second episode. This is the second episode of the entire show. So that's like already right there. I'm like, okay, so you didn't do your research. I understand. And then they start saying how Visipop was Hollywood elite. I just started laughing. I'm like, wait a second. Visipop, Hollywood elite? Did you guys not have bother looking at all into who she is? She's from YouTube. Hollywood despises it when YouTubers are able to break their way into the mainstream because they feel threatened by the little guy, or in this case, the little gal. And so it's like, guys, no, Visipop is not Hollywood elites. No, this is not a satanic show. This show does not teach you to worship Satan at all. and if you had at least watched the pilot and then watched this, you'd be able to see what the story is and you'd be able to comment on it. They had no idea what was going on other than how the show rewrites the opening of the Garden of Eden opening, which is the beginning of Genesis, the beginning of not just the Christian theology, but also of Judaism and Islam, going back to the beginning. And they were really upset with how this show reinterpreted scripture. And you know what? Okay, I guess that's fine if you want to get upset about that. It's up to you. You have your own beliefs. I have mine. But if you're going to a cartoon made by indie animators from YouTube to understand religion, I think you need to go back and rethink some things. Oh boy. So yes, Chloe, thank you for getting back to me. I'll reply to you shortly. Chloe's was one of our winners for the first come first serve win 5 free books, and I'll be trying to get those out to those who won them as soon as possible. Thank you so much to everyone who applied to that. It really does mean a lot, really, for everyone to support us here on the channel. So thank you so much. And I do actually, right now where I'm sitting, I know I don't have a camera right now looking right on me, but I'm actually right now sitting next to all of the books that I will be shipping out. I will even give you guys a little bit of ASMR. There you go. Slap a book. It's a good book. Just don't abuse your books. So in any case, getting back to my little rant right here, it annoyed me to hear from people. And again, it's okay to have a bad hot take. However, if you're going to do a review, if you're going to do commentary on anything, on any kind of story, at least please read it or watch it. Educate yourself just a little bit. I mean, I like the channel WDW Pro, but come on. It was a bad take all around. It was totally a clutch my pearls moment. This show is everything that is wrong with Hollywood and wrong with modern entertainment. And this is also then where it began to get a little hypocritical, because they constantly talk about how you can't use Twitter as a good barometer for how people are actually feeling, where pop culture actually is. There's like, yeah, no, that doesn't work. And yet, they then went to Twitter to show all of these different comments of people saying that how dare Amazon show this horribly satanic cartoon that takes a dump on the Bible, and that they are going to quit Amazon. And they were all like, well, based on these few hundred responses on Twitter, this means that this show is automatically a flop, and Amazon is going to lose big, and it's going to be awful. There is drama behind the scenes because there are studios which Amazon is closing down. I don't know enough about that to comment on it, but people are immediately connecting those studios to Hazbin Hotel and are saying this is the end. It's not the end until we get to see where things go. And especially because, again, VisiPop and her group were working on this stuff independent of Amazon and A24 before the show even came into being on Amazon. So, again, if they had actually done the research, they would have seen the creators of the show can still make this without needing another studio or A24 Studios or Amazon to support them. It just makes it easier and gives them an even greater reach than what YouTube normally would. Coming to Ryan Phillips, I'm religious, and although I certainly wouldn't call the portrayal of the Garden of Eden story as portrayed and has been correct, I understand that it's a work of fiction, and I can enjoy it as it is. Exactly. And honestly, the same for me, Ryan. Like I've got my own beliefs, and I'm someone who I've studied quite a bit into religion. I've been on the preaching side of things, and I've had so many fantastic connections with all these different people of various faiths, and it's been great. And I'm completely devout in my own beliefs, and yet, despite the fact that my beliefs would say that what I'm watching on Hazbin Hotel has no connection to the Bible whatsoever, doesn't mean I can't enjoy it. And I also at the same time understand that if other people don't enjoy it, that's totally fine. Which is why, again, and what I originally had planned to only bring this up as kind of like an opening joke for tonight's live stream, just like, oh man, bad hot takes about Hazbin Hotel, he ha ha ha, let's move on. I decided that I had to actually talk about it when I was going on a walk and listening to some stuff on YouTube, and WDW Pro came back with a special edit to one video, and it was all like no, we weren't saying that it was that what we were saying was wrong. It became this odd word salad, which effectively was all like, don't get mad at us for it. What effectively the meaning of it all was, don't get mad at us for our opinions. We're just telling the truth. And if you don't like the show, awesome. And if you do like it, well, you're okay to like it, but it's a failure. It's a failing show. And the moment that I heard that word salad and understood that that was what he was going for, I was like, oh no, 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 no. You got clapback. I went back, looked at the comments to the previous video where they were saying how the show was an absolute flop already from the get go, and there were so many people commenting saying maybe you should watch it before you say anything. Like, do you realize what this show is? Like, a lot of people were all like, that was a bad take, and rather than simply taking the lumps, taking the L, he doubled down on it. So, guys and gals, everyone, it's okay to have a bad hot take. It happens to the best of us. I've had bad hot takes, and I've gotten things absolutely wrong. I've gotten stuff wrong, actually, for our anime preview. I totally misjudged Solo Leveling, and Scott set me right. And it comes down to us to make sure that we keep ourselves humble enough, open-minded enough to receive criticism, to apply said criticism, and realize maybe we were a little bit too harsh in our initial judgment. If WDW Pro and friends decide to actually watch the first 2 episodes of Hazbin Hotel and decide it's not for them, awesome. But at least they will have watched it, they'll have given it a shot, and they will have educated themselves, and it will be better. Tails the Wolf, hi, new sub, awesome. Thank you, Tails the Wolf. Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing, and on this incredible rant about bad hot takes about Hazbin Hotel. And for myself, me too, Hazbin Hotel isn't really my type of story, but I don't think it's an offensive garbage heap as other people do. Fiction is fiction, a creative projection of thought, and I can appreciate that. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll just see where this goes. I do want to eventually follow up with Hazbin Hotel. I've been wanting to do some videos on it. It's just, man, taking the time to actually put together the videos for that, it eats up so much time. I really want to do it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait to see a little bit about what kind of actual data does come out about how well Hazbin Hotel has been received as it's premiering, and that actually will lead us, I think, to some very interesting conversations, especially a follow-up conversation to my video from last year about how Glitch destroyed Disney. A lot of people are like, no, that's not really happening. And I'm like, now that we have Hazbin Hotel and Glitch both doing their own thing, we can start actually doing real comparisons by numbers to show if indie animation really is trouncing Hollywood like we claim it is. Or if it isn't, we'll then be proven wrong. Tails the Wolf, I wish I could join the stream to say hi to you. Hey, Tails, at least you're here at least you're there in the chat and saying hi. And again, I absolutely do appreciate that. One of these days, we will figure out a little bit better how to invite other people on to have actual conversations. One of the reasons why I've been slightly hesitant to do that is just because on my end, my internet, I live in a black hole. My internet sometimes gets really, really bad. If you've listened to the anime seasonal previews that we do, if my audio sounds bad, that Scott records and we then put up to all the footage, it's because of the black hole that I live in. In fact, earlier this week, it was deplorable. I went for like 3 days of just everything running so slow. And when you work from home and do videos, that's kind of sucky. So eventually we'll get to the point where I feel more confident in pulling people on in. The internet's working better. We've got all that sorted on out. And then, hey, I would love to have conversations with other YouTubers or with guests coming on to our show and everything like that, and just having fun conversations about all different kinds of stories and what we're doing with our own writing. Having that ability to communicate, if not face-to-face, at least in real time, where you can hear each other rather than just see what people write, that does so much for being able to communicate, for connecting and receiving feedback and all that stuff. Tails the Wolf, you're a YouTuber as well? Awesome. Let me know in the chat what kind of stuff that you're doing. So yeah, that was my opening rant about the hot takes for Hazbin Hotel, and I know that more of them are coming on out. I don't know how many people keep up with YouTubers like Nux Taku, but he's definitely been following along with a lot of the drama surrounding Hazbin Hotel, and I just know that there's going to be a lot of bad hot takes and maybe some good hot takes. There's going to be a lot of different reviews and analyses for this show. I definitely, as I said, I want to get in on that a little bit, but I'll need to make sure I make the time for that. Because working on as many stories as I am, plus trying to crank out videos, it's rough. And then plus just taking care of the family, doing what you got to do around the house. Got 3 cats, trying to work out. It's amazing where the day just vanishes super quick. Tales the Wolf, my channel, I upload reactions from YouTuber gaming videos and AMV music. All right. So reactionary videos and gaming and music videos are always great. So that's basically my stuff right there with Hazbin Hotel. If there's any one thing that I would add of actually any sort of narrative substance to what I saw from this most recent episode of Hazbin Hotel, what I will say is this: the dead angel, spoilers, at the end got my mind reeling real quick because I was like, wait. Because in Hell of a Boss, they have bullets forged from angelic material, which can then be used to go and kill demons, like make it really quick and easy. And it could even kill higher ranking demons and sinners. So there's like this black market to get for people to get their hands on angelic material. However, well, it's kind of hard to tell with like where everything is with Hell of a Boss and Hazbin Hotel in terms of continuity. Like, where are they in relation to each other? So is it potentially that some of the characters within Hell of a Boss who've been dealing with this kind of stuff, like such as with Stryker, were they the ones who killed an angel and then used the materials in order to make their better weapons, to make their guns and their bullets? Or is this a completely separate thing? Because if it is related, then we can definitely see later on a crossover between VisiPop's 2 shows, which I think would be really cool. And if it could be that this actually happened, that Stryker had already gotten his hands on angelic material before what we see right here. What it could possibly mean is that this most recent purge, which now has Adam and the other angels deciding that they're going to come even sooner to just wipe out hell entirely, what it could mean, my two theories is that either they're now worried because demons are now getting better at fighting and killing angels, and they just want to nip that in the bud before it gets away from them, or it could be that the angels that we're seeing already right here are not really the angels that are actually in charge of the overall cosmos, but like this Adam angel is basically just a party bro doing his own thing. What if, and I know I'm kind of going on a limb right here, but what if the angels that we see in Hazbin Hotel are actually kind of like a splinter group that have kind of taken over the ruling of the cosmos and are kind of doing things against the planned order that was intended from the beginning? Don't really know, and I don't have much to justify that, but I think that would be a really interesting twist, because then you have that conflict between the angels and the demons, and then Charlie, who's looking for a way to redeem sinners. And I think that's ultimately where it's going to go, because no one should actually want to stay in hell. Hell is hell. It's awful. But heaven is obviously not a great place either, just based on what we've seen from the angels. So what this means is that the whole plan is broken. Something is just completely gone off the rails, and I think that's where Hazbin Hotel is eventually going to kind of lead us to, is uncovering what really happened with the angels, what actually is happening in heaven, because it might not be what anyone thinks it is. So there's my waffle right there. Bye, Tails. Thanks for dropping on in. And yeah, have fun making your reaction video to Hazbin Hotel. And let me quickly catch up with stuff right here. Ryan says, Nux is pretty cool. I don't watch everything he posts, he's great for getting the skinny on the internet drama for sure. Yeah, that he's definitely there for that. He nowadays just posts so much it's hard to keep up, and I don't try keeping up with it all anymore. I watch Nuxanor from time to time. He's entertaining. He can be pretty entertaining. I feel like he's not quite at the same level that he was a few years ago, and I think that's because, as he's himself even said, in order for him to have a career as a YouTuber, he just has to crank out so much stuff as quickly as he possibly can. And that makes it harder and harder to have more in-depth takes and insights into what's really going on, which I think is why he's kind of transitioned far more towards doing his own reaction videos to what everyone else is doing, and then really doing commentary on internet drama. So I think that's that's what's been going on there with Nux. And I might take a quick drink. All right, so yeah, there's my Hazbin Hotel commentary. Let's dive on into some other stuff. Woohoo! So, solo leveling. Because since I put that into the title for tonight's stream, definitely gotta talk about it right here. So, the most recent episode of Solo Leveling, this right here was peak D&D goodness. And this goes straight for you, Tevin, because you said you wanted more D&D talk. What makes the most recent episode for Solo Leveling work so well is that it is good traditional dungeon crawling. And that means it's brutal, it's violent, it's heavy on the action, but also heavy on the puzzle solving. And oh my gosh. So if you don't know the setup, if you haven't yet watched it, let me quickly fill you on in. Portals open up to another world where you've got all the kinds of D&D shenanigans you could ever think of. All kinds of different fantasy creatures, dungeons, castles, gods, all that stuff. And they spill through these portals. Whenever a portal appears, adventurers have 7 days to go into the portal, find the boss room, and kill the boss, who kind of generates all of the energy and all of the creatures that could then spill out. If they don't do that, they will then have what they call a dungeon run, in which the portal bursts open like a nasty pimple, and just all these monsters and magic spill out into Earth, and they will cause a catastrophe. So the adventurers need to go in and hunt down the monsters, find the boss room, kill the boss, boom, Bob's your uncle, the day is saved, until the next portal arrives. So here we have our main character. Well, here we have our main character, Mr. Swolo, and I call him that because I always get his name wrong. Sung Jin Woo, I think is supposed to be his name. I just call him Swolo. So Swolo goes on in, the weakest adventurer in Korea, and he's with a bunch of D-ranking hunters. So they're higher than him. They've got some experience and everything, and they're actually doing a pretty good job of cleaning out the dungeon. However, when they get to a dead end and they are like, did we actually clear the dungeon? This seemed pretty easy. I mean, most people are like, oh, that was an easy payday. I'm going to collect the magical gems and equipment, and I'll be able to sell it, make good money. Then, well, what happens is that they then realize there's yet a deeper chamber within the dungeon. Maybe that's actually the true boss room. So they go on in, and when they go on in there, they get sealed within this chamber with all of these gigantic statues. And there's this creepy king-looking god figure who will blast them unless they get down on their knees and show subservience. And they have to follow these different rules within the dungeon and figure out the puzzle to it in order to not get killed by these massive stone statues. These stone statues are basically S rank, which means like you have to be the strongest of the strongest in order to even just fight these guys head on and have a chance. If you're not one of the strongest, if you're like A rank or lower, you're probably going to get cut in half or stomped on or blasted into pieces like just about everyone else in Swolo's party. So Swolo, being the weakest hunter and adventurer in Korea, he's had to rely on his wit. He's had to rely on other things in order to. He has had to rely on all of his other attributes in order to survive. And he's got a pretty good, decent intellect. So when they get sealed on in, and the king begins blasting people with his laser beam eyes, he realizes we all have to be subservient. We all have to kneel. Once they kneel, the laser beams stop. Well, then, once the laser beams stop, all of the other statues begin moving. The new phase of the battle has begun. What do they have to do? They then have to sing the praises. They don't know what kind of praises to sing, but there's a bunch of statues that are not moving, which have musical instruments. So each hunter must go to one of these statues and stand in its vicinity, and it will begin to play music. And once everyone has a statue playing music, then the other statues will then stop attacking, and then this altar appears, and then they have to make a sacrifice, or at least so they think. And that's where it gets really interesting, because it's really a massive trick. It's all about testing their loyalty and their courage. And so what happens is everyone has to go to the center of the room, get to the sacrificial altar, and then at the sacrificial altar there are two rings of fire that appear. Again, this is just amazing dungeon crafting stuff right here. I love it. So the inner circle of flame numbers each person who has stepped within the vicinity of the altar and is now ready for the next phase. Then there is another line of fire, blue fire, which puffs out at regular intervals as a clock counting down. If they can survive within this ring, and for all the flames to go on out, everyone will be allowed to leave the room unharmed. However, in order to leave the room unharmed, not only do they have to stay within that circle, they all have to have a stare down with these statues. Because if they blink or look away or turn away, the statues will immediately attack them. So everyone has to stare down these statues until the time runs out. Testing their loyalty and testing their bravery, the doors finally open. And so the adventurers, the hunters, should they choose, can break and run for it. The adventurers who have not been injured heavily break and run for it, because they're right next to a sacrificial altar, for crying out loud. For all they know, they're supposed to be sacrificed, or by staying within the circle of flames as the flames are running out, what if when the last flame dies, and it dies on the outside, the other middle flames will suddenly turn to this great conflagration and then burn them alive? Who knows what will happen? It is a trick. It is a trap. So what do you do? And yeah, so this is brutal, and is most definitely worth watching. Well, unfortunately for Mr. Swolo, he gets abandoned. Everyone else starts running, and as you can see right now there on the screen, he's going to get beaten up really, really badly. And he himself can't run because during the second phase of this dungeon, one of the statues, using a tower shield, crushes one of his legs off by smashing the shield down on top of him and snapping off one of his legs. So yeah, this guy, this poor guy, he's been through a lot. And as they're slowly left by the other adventurers, the doors keep on closing. And so then the final adventurers who are there with Swolo are like, holy dang, this is a sacrifice. If we escape and one person stays around behind, we just sacrifice one person, like the altar is suggesting, and we can all leave and not have to worry about what happens when the timer runs out. Because maybe if the timer runs out, we all get burned or whatever. So let's go. And Swolo agrees to stay behind as the sacrifice, allowing everyone else to leave. And then, because he can't look at all of the statues all at once, the circle is broken and all of the statues just come for him. And again, these are S-ranked statues, and they just wreck him. And he dies. until the Deus Ex Machina computer game stuff that we've come to expect from stuff such as Sword Art Online resurrects him. And then this is where the adventure for Solo Leveling actually will begin, as he now will be resurrected with a special ability to level up by going on solo adventures. And that'll be interesting to see how they adapt that from this point on out. But for those of you who are interested in writing dungeon crawls, or who are interested in creating dungeon crawls for D&D campaigns, this is an excellent thing to draw inspiration from. And I loved it in part because it actually reminded me of a dungeon crawl puzzle that I created for one of my own campaigns that Scott and others have been playing through, where to get through this one place. So they're in this castle that's been completely buried under a mountain, and each door will randomly lead you to a different place in the castle. You never know where you're going to go. Oh, it's a horrible lottery. And as they're making their way through this underground castle, they ended up in a hallway. And this hallway had all of these different doors that they could go through, and they had to choose the right door in order to get to the center of the castle, which was their goal. So they had to figure out which would be the right door. And then, not only that, they had to figure out how to unlock that door. I had these magical mirrors all over where they had to catch the sunlight off of an artificial magical sun, bounce off of one mirror, bounce it against a symbol over a specific door that would then reflect back at the right door that they wanted to open. However, each magical mirror that they touched would immediately animate a suit of armor that would attack them. And the moment that they opened up a door, there was a golden statue that would immediately be activated and would attack them. And much like what you actually see in the second episode of Solo Leveling, where it's all super high level, my players were at level 11 when they played. All of the suits of armor were also at their same level, so level 11, and I made the statues basically levels 15 and 18. So if you are a D&D player and you're level 11, which actually gives you access to tons of abilities, some really excellent spells for spellcasters and the likes, you're actually a pretty good adventurer and hero at that point. However, if you're going up against level 15 or level 18 characters, such as the animated golden statues, you are in for a world of hurt because they can take more damage, they can deal out more damage, and on top of that, for each mirror that they've had to adjust in order to bounce this magical sunlight around, suits of armor get animated and immediately begin attacking them. So they had a really rough time of it in that hallway, and just barely managed to make it out before a massacre. So later on in the campaign, when they came back to that hallway and they had to go through that all again, they had learned to use other mirrors other than the magical mirrors to bounce the sunlight, so that way they could immediately open up a door and only have to deal with the statue that would immediately turn around to attack them and just book it through the door before the statue managed to land any blows. Kind of similar to the group in Solo Leveling trying to escape the statue before the statue just comes on in and absolutely wrecks them. And so if you're going to write your own dungeon crawls, whether in a book or for a campaign, it's not always about the straight up fighting. Puzzle solving, and in fact actually having puzzles to solve in the middle of combat, just ups that factor, ups the anxiety, ups the intensity, because then everyone has to work together to figure out either how to solve the puzzle or help the person who's solving the puzzle to not be slaughtered by all of the monsters or curses or what have you that's there in the dungeon. And this is actually something that I, for myself, like now that I've played this out a couple of times as a dungeon master and also as a player in D&D, I do have a story in mind where I want to actually have people go into a magical dungeon and go through that experience. And so watching it executed here in Solo Leveling gives me hope that if I do my job right, I can also replicate that. But yeah, dungeon crawls must have puzzles. Otherwise, it's just a cold slog through fighting enemies again and again and again. And that gets really boring. And that's one of the things that makes the earlier episodes, or I say the earlier chapters of the manhwa, really fun to read because Mr. Swolo has to solve puzzles. He has to figure things out. He has to use his intelligence in order to get through all of these different challenges. One of the things that's unfortunate, in my opinion, when it comes to power leveling, power fantasies, is that very often writers begin to ignore the puzzle aspect, the part where characters have to be smart and resourceful in order to win, and instead they just rely on straight up power and gaining a new power to specifically save them in that particular moment, and that is just lazy. And in that particular instance, that's where usually then power-ups start replacing character development, and no, power-ups are not character developments. I want everyone to know that. I hate it so much. I hate it so much when I read a story or watch a show or read a manga where I can tell that a character is getting character development because they gained a new spell or gained a new weapon or gained a new power. It infuriates me. If that weapon or that power up or what have you is tied to a character going through something that allows them to improve as an individual or grow as an individual, then I'm okay with it. And actually, a good example of that would be in Harry Potter. In the sixth Harry Potter book, in the Half-Blood Prince, you actually have J.K. Rowling does a dungeon crawl in the sixth Harry Potter book in order to get Voldemort's Horcrux at the end of the book. Dumbledore and Harry go on a legit dungeon crawl in order to get the Horcrux, and ultimately Harry is put to the test. He has to grow as an individual. He has to prove his loyalty, prove his heroism, in order to survive the dungeon. And sure, the Horcrux isn't actually real; it's fake, but it's an important clue which helps guide him on his journey in the next book to not only win over Creature as a loyal servant, but then to also find out where to look for the other Horcruxes. And that just blows the quest to defeat Voldemort wide open. So it's not necessarily your traditional power-up, but it's something that Harry needs in order to complete his quest to save the day. And the dungeon crawl that he goes through is actually good character development. So, there you go. There's an example. You can go and you can read and see a dungeon crawl executed well. And unless you guys have any sort of things to talk about with that, I'm going to move us on to Villainess Level 99. And if you do have anything to say about solo leveling, Mr. Swolo and his adventures, put it into the chat and we'll talk about it. But if you have not yet watched Villainous Level 99, please do it. Oh my gosh, this is such a fantastic show. I talked last week about how great the opening was, how you get this great fake out where you think that the heroine within the game, the cute little pink-haired girl, is actually the main character, and then halfway through the episode, it gets totally flipped on its head, and then realize that the black-haired girl who's been isekai'd is actually the main character, the main protagonist of the story. I love how they did that switch, and I love how they followed up with it in the newest episode from this week. They did everything beat for beat from the manga, and the manga is written very well. But I liked how they slowed down a little bit to really just sink you into the ridiculousness of the situation. So what happens at the end of the first episode, once we realize that, this black-haired girl right here, she's actually the main character, it is revealed through a magical crystal ball that her level is 99. scores of levels above everyone else. And so in this episode, we pick up there again, and everyone is like, "You've cheated somehow. There's no way that you're level 99." And everyone's like, "You've somehow tampered with a magical crystal." And I'm just going to say this. I don't understand where that kind of mentality comes from. As a former teacher myself, there are moments where, as a teacher, I'm like, "I have created this brilliant challenge for you, my students. This is going to take you all period long to complete." And then you have that one kid who just bashes and crashes his or her way through the assignment and does it all perfectly. And you're like, "Wow, that is incredible." It happens. And as a teacher, you have to respect when that happens. And then when a teacher actually proves themselves that capable, that's when you either help that student to become a mentor for the other students, or you start giving them more challenging things to do, things that will then interest them. Uh, so that's what you would expect from a good teacher. All of the teachers in this academy that you see here in this anime are horrible teachers. Because they immediately are all like, "Well, it's not our fault that this kid is so smart. You must be lying. You're a horrible student. You're a bad girl. We're going to expel you at the next possible moment." It's just like, what? What? And especially for a girl who can use so much magic, like if it were me as the teacher and I saw, "Oh, you're level 99," I'd be like, "Okay, then let's start putting this to the test." The teachers don't even put her to the test right off the bat. If I were the teacher, if I were one of the teachers responsible there at this academy, I'd be like, "Okay, then, kid, I am now going to take you to a dungeon. We're going to do a dungeon crawl, or I'm going to test you on magical theory, or let's just see how powerful your magic actually is, and see if that is the equivalent to a level 99 person. And if it isn't, then clearly there's something wrong with this magical device." And I need to know how you either bamboozled it, or I need to know why it's bamboozled. Uh, I mean, actually do an investigation, for crying out loud. But in this story, you're not getting any such logic, and you're not getting any such justice, which actually plays in really well to what we get in this episode, because at the end of this episode you get a proper girl boss moment. And nowadays, it's a common thing that people criticize when it comes to stuff from Hollywood, like, "Oh, the girl boss moments where the girl comes in, totally owns everyone, and she's super awesome. She breaks all the rules. She gets away with everything, and then boom, she's good. And she's proven that she's a queen. She's a boss, and no one can touch her." And those moments are actually not bad. They're not bad moments. They're just often set up really, really horribly, or executed really, really horribly. The girl boss moment at the end of episode 2 is brilliant. And I'll quickly explain why right here. Actually, I'll explain why after I read what ISO wrote right here. "I bet they wrote the teachers from the perspective of a student. Students often feel either inferior or singled out whenever they're in class. I felt this way back in 4th grade, but no better now." Exactly. And actually, ISO, you make an excellent point right there. I've been working on the script for a video on how to write magical academies. And I've been dragging my feet way too long on this particular video, because it should be a whole lot of fun. And in that video, lending in my experience as a teacher, I try to let people know, like, hey, good and bad teachers are going to act this way. And if you actually want to write a believable magical academy, you have to stop thinking like a student. Almost everyone knows what it's like to be a student, but people don't know what it's like to be a teacher or an administrator. And when you can write from that perspective, even if you've never actually held that position, you can actually make your magical academy feel way more realistic and way more immersive, in a way that actually engages the reader way more than just reading everything from a student's perspective. And you don't even need to be a teacher in order to do that. And I actually outline in the script how you can be a teacher for a magical school. So if you've ever wanted to be a teacher, if you ever wanted to teach magic, I will teach you how to teach magic in an upcoming video. I promise it is coming. And this is why I don't have enough time to sit down and do a massive video on Hazbin Hotel, because I'm working on all these other videos. But thank you, ISO, for bringing that up. That is a fantastic point. So coming back to it, how they pull off this girl boss moment, because it actually is really, really good. So everyone accuses our main gal, the villainess, for cheating somehow. She somehow bamboozled the crystal ball and has lied that she's really level 99. Well, at the after party, where everyone gets together and the students can get to know each other, get to know who you're going to go to school with, who's going to be in your class, yada, 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 she is immediately beset upon by the three heroes of the game in which she's been isekai'd into. And they are like, no, you're lying somehow. We know that you cheated. And the prince even is like, I will find a way to have you, Yumilia. I'll have you kicked out of the school. I'll have you expelled for daring to besmirch the good name of this academy and besmirch the good name of all its nobles. And the first guy, who challenges her to sword fighting. He's like, if you're level 99, you should be physically very strong. Well, I'm a level 10 swordsman. I know I can wipe the floor with just about anyone here at the school, so I challenge you to a duel. And she is actually really kind to him, figuring out the best way to beat him in sword play, so that way she can communicate very firmly to him, I am level 99, please back off, but do it in such a way that doesn't wreck him, to like break his bones or even kill him, because she's just that strong. So she actually goes out of her way to avoid really beating up on this guy, and it's his own stupidity which leads him to being beaten up. But she's just all like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for any of that to happen. I'm going to move on already. Please just stop bothering me. Okay. Well, then the second hero comes up and challenges her, the magician, Mr. Oswald, and he's like, "Ha! I'm going to perform my amazing magic on this special magic resistant dummy, and I'll show everyone with a magical blast of power just how flashy and calculated my spells are." And he's like, I bet you can't do that. If you're really level 99, you could outdo me. And so she's just like, fine. She's like, I really don't want to get drawn into a long fight like what happened with the last guy. So I'm just going to end this really fast and can we just please move on? So she casts a spell of black flame that completely destroys the magic resistant dummy. And the teacher, the witch that we see right here, she's just all like, oh my gosh, this girl's incredible. She has such that's such a high level spell. And so when the prince and the prince and the principal show up then to expel her, the teacher actually then this teacher, at least in particular, does the right thing and stands up for her student, explaining she's actually incredibly gifted. We should be nurturing this talent because it will actually be really good. And if we can raise her up to be a good citizen of the country, she will be a great asset to our country and to the royal family. Don't kick her out. And the principal is all like, well, the prince wants to kick her on out. And the prince is like, yes, how dare you upstage me and my friends and upstage the heroine? We will get rid of you. And by my authority as prince, you will be expelled. And the principal helps to be all like, yeah, unless you can prove that you really are level 99, unless you can prove it outright, I will expel you immediately and have you run out of the country. And so Yumilia, then this is when the girl boss moment comes in, is fine, you guys want to see level 99 magic? And she creates a black hole above the city and completely flexes on everyone. And the reason why that's such a good girl boss moment is because this is at the end of 2 episodes. We've had 2 episodes, or at least an episode and a half, to show how she did up her level, that she does have the skill to be level 99. She has the experience. And so she can actually deliver. She's not breaking any rules of this world by having that awesome moment. But furthermore, what actually makes this really awesome is that after a whole episode of everyone doubting her, belittling her, bullying her, and she's already had two bullies try to put her in her place by effectively beating her up or trying to upstage her and just be outright mean to her, and she's been rather nice to them. This is the straw that breaks the camel's back. You're the prince. You should be kinder. You should be smarter than this. But you're just a brat, and you and all of your friends have just been bullying me. Fine, I will give you what you ask for. And she delivers the girl boss moment. That is how you do it. You don't just simply be all like, oh, here's our girl, and people are being mean to her. Now she's going to beat them up and steal their motorcycle and ride off into the sunset. Like, that just makes the girl, even though justified, come off somewhat as a bully herself. In this case with Yumilia, she's not a bully. It's firmly established. She's gone out of her way to be kind to these people, to avoid them, and to avoid hurting them as they've challenged her or tried to bully her. And that's what then makes her girl boss moment so epic, because she earned it. It doesn't break any rules, and it is so well deserved for all of these bullies who have been tormenting her now for an episode and a half. So yeah, that is why the girl boss moment at the end of episode 2 just works so well, and the rest of it's just fun. Like, I found myself laughing so much throughout the episode. So you got great humor going to as well. It's not super edgy, but the girl boss moment is just delivered so well. Coming down to what Isa had typed in here, I'm pretty stuck on teaching magic. I find it oddly complicated. And here's the thing. I totally understand that, Isa. Not everyone is cut out to be a teacher in real life. And even for people who are trained in how to be teachers, it's actually pretty difficult. And I actually became a teacher not by going to school to be a high school teacher. I got in through a backdoor program, effectively, because here in Arizona, we're the second worst state in terms of education. Woohoo, go Arizona! I love my home state, but come on. In order to get more teachers, because we don't have enough teachers, it was signed into law that anyone who has a master's degree could instantly become a high school teacher without any training whatsoever. I needed a job. I applied. I became a high school history teacher, and I thought, I love history. I know so much about history. Give me the agenda of what I need to teach, and I will have taught it all. And holy cow, it was hard. And I had to go through 2 years of extracurricular education on the side to learn how to be a teacher. And the entire time they were like telling us, like, it's okay if you don't immediately get this, because this is hard, even for veteran teachers, having to deal with taking care of a class, building a good lesson plan, being able to adapt when a lesson plan goes awry, having your rubric, your curriculum, blah 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 blah. So much stuff goes into teaching, and so it is really complicated. However, what I hope to deliver with my video is I take a lot of that complicated stuff and I break it down. And one things that I especially try to do is, for anything that is taught well in school, you learn how it is applicable to real life. So for your characters, and I'll just kind of give this out to anyone who's wondering, how do you write a magical academy? This is something very important. It's something that even J.K. Rowling got wrong quite a few times. Any subject that is being taught in school must be taught in such a way that is applicable to the real life of your students. And so when you're writing a magical academy, if your students are learning levitation magic, for instance, they don't just simply need to learn how to cast the spell and maintain it. They need to learn what ways what ways would you use this levitation spell? What are your limits? What things should you do and what things should you not do? And then they can then realize, oh, when I grow up to be an adult wizard, I will have my own airplane business that doesn't cause any damage to the environment, because I can levitate and fly big Boeing airplanes without burning up a bunch of jet fuel. Stuff like that. When students realize why a subject is applicable to real life, that is when the subject begins to be interesting. And that's one of the reasons why math and history and English are some of the hardest subjects for students, and why there's sometimes some of the hardest subjects to teach as teachers, because when are you going to use the history of the Renaissance? When are you going to use the Pythagorean theorem in any sort of job? When are you going to use an understanding of the Lord of Flies in order to get a job? Like, students are like, why do I need to know this? Why should I care? And it is up to the teacher to help guide the students to realize, oh, by understanding the Lord of the Flies, I understand a little bit more about society, and I realize that while chaos sounds like a whole lot of fun, Joker time, adding chaos to the society leads to people dying. And when you remove consequences and rules, things get really hairy. Oh, thank you, Lord of the Flies. And the Lord of the Flies really gets that across. The Pythagorean theorem, sure, you might not use that very often, but you actually can teach students how to use basic math to actually do very simple things in everyday life. Math is applicable everywhere. And for history, you can make students love history by helping them to realize how that history ties into the world in which they live, and that by better understanding history, they understand themselves, they understand their position, and they can better judge what is happening in their world. And that's what makes history kind of help to come alive, and that's what makes math applicable, and that's what makes English way more interesting than just simply read this book and write an essay. So, the struggles of being a teacher. From Ryan Phillips, cool moments have to be earned, and it amazes me how complex setting that up can be. Exactly, Ryan. Exactly. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to relearn that myself by coming up with some really fun moments I'm so excited to write, and then realizing I have to really put in the work to make that moment happen. And sometimes I find that actually the build up to that cool moment, at least for the writer, becomes even cooler than the actual cool moments, because I already know the cool moments by that time. And it's more for the reader than to experience, oh, this cool moment's so amazing. And the writer's like, yeah, I know it is, but the setup wasn't that great. Let's see here. So from ISO, my characters are learning how to use magic in a combative manner, so I have to teach them the basics first, but I really need to not over-explain. I have a habit of doing that, info dumping and stuff. Yes, info dumping is so easy to do. And I've recently been reading Shadow of the Conqueror by Shad Brooks, or Shadiversity, and oh my gosh, the over-explaining for how his magic system is done. Here's the thing. It's okay to over-explain certain complex aspects when you need to do that, but you should not be explaining for half a page how a character is executing a magical jump and flight. No, I don't care. Just teach me how it works, and then show it to me throughout the story, and show how that knowledge is applied in order to make that happen. So ISO, for you, here's what I would suggest that you do. And this is again actually something from my upcoming video. What you should do, and I wouldn't necessarily put this immediately into your story, but write this out kind of as an aside. If you're teaching a character, for instance, how to use combative magic, write it in such a way that a little kid can understand it. Fireball goes boom. Hold out your hand, say the magic words, and fireball goes boom. Okay, then. Now then, if you're using like more complex stuff, like you must harness the power of your shadow and weave it around your enemy and move the shadow up them, bashing away their own shadow, and then constricting them until the life is squeezed out of them. I mean, I just simplified it right there, but as far as the mechanics go, you then say, okay, then you are connected to your shadow, giving your shadow the same life that you have. What you need to do is you need to start thinking of your shadow as an extra extension of yourself, like an extra limb, a very complicated limb. So it's going to take some time. You're going to have to practice. First, work, dear students, on feeling your shadow. Can you feel it? Okay, good. Now, make your shadow do things independent of the rest of your body. Just experiment a little. And so you build slowly, piece by piece, on how to do something that's far more complicated, and you keep it nice and simple. Again, try to keep it so that a little kid should be able to understand the magic that is being used. And if you can write it that way, it's easy for anyone to understand. And then for certain moments, you can start getting complicated. And that's when you can start having a little bit more fun with the depth of your magic and its various applications. From Ryan, I really enjoyed how grounded the magic in Christopher Paolini's Inheritance series was. It felt very natural, and the place at which magic and its mechanics was paced perfectly, in my opinion. I do like the magic system of Christopher Paolini's Inheritance. The one thing that kind of irked me a little bit in terms of power scaling was how, like, the more knowledgeable you get, you just simply get more power. Even though he said it's actually, even though he had established that it's more about how efficiently you use your magic, which I really like that. I really like the idea of efficiency. Figuring out the easiest way to use magic ends up you normally being the better way to use magic, so you don't overexhaust yourself. And by learning more magic words, and then by combining your power with other helpful magicians or with a dragon or storing energy into gems, that can help boost you up. I really like that. That was very solid, very well done, and applause to Christopher Paolini for doing that. The one thing I just didn't like was how Aragon just seemed to keep on growing in energy, and I get it because he was building up to the fight with Galbatorix, except that, I'll be honest, Ryan, I hated how the final battle went down with Galbatorix, because I had to reread it multiple times just to make sure I understood what was happening there, and I was like, oh, come on. Oh, that's a cop-out. I was expecting, like, a good battle, and you just made him feel so depressed that he offed himself. I'm sorry. I know I just spoiled it right there for people who haven't read the books. Sorry. But close your ears. Forget what I just said. But overall, Ryan, I have to agree. Well done on Christopher's part. And if you get the chance to actually ever meet the guy, like at a Comic-Con or at a book signing, if you have the chance to meet him, I highly recommend it. Very personable, very nice guy. He actually gave me some excellent advice in person at the Phoenix Comic-Con about how to deal with critics for one of my stories that I've been writing, and especially like how to approach dragons. And I have to thank him because he really, really helped me out. From ISO, hey, my character describes shadows as feeling like mud, cold, wet, shifty, constricting. I like the imagery I used in that scene. Awesome, yeah. And it's all about, and really, when it comes to describing how your magic works, again, focus on making it as simple as possible. I feel like I kind of made that mistake in my first novel. It's easy enough to get when you realize, oh, you just use your imagination in order to make things happen, and you have the ability to just manifest your imagination. Holy cow! It's more about what I can't do rather than what I can do, because imagination is practically limitless, and it then comes down more to the aspects of world building that give my magic system any sort of complications or challenges. In my books, I really like to see what people can do with OP powers, because in my opinion, an overpowered character is still very interesting. And if you're just someone who's just all like, well, why don't I just have my character create a magic button, hit the magic button, and everything goes kablooey, and then I win? I say, yeah, you could do that. But what happens if you're like, here's my magic button and everything goes kablooey, and the other person who also can use imagination is all like, I ripped the wires out of that button. And then you hit the button and you're like, wait, what? Why isn't the button working? I imagine a button that would just destroy all of my enemies. Why have I not won? And the other person's like, I stole the wires. And if that person's like, wait, I didn't put wires. I did. And then I turn your wires into vipers and they now bite you. And the person's like, oh, crud. Now I have to worry about just suddenly got bit by vipers. I've got venom running through me. I need to heal myself. And while they're focusing on healing themselves, and the other person comes and like throat punches them and completely shocks them, which if you get throat punched, it does cause your brain to seize up, and you're like, wait, what's happening to me? It's a horrible thing. Don't get throat punched. So like I love messing around with OP powers and seeing what you can actually do with that. That's the magic system for a lot of my books. OP powers. So again, from Ryan, the battle against Galbatorix is pretty forgettable. I agree. Ryan as well. So cool that you got to meet Paolini. I hope I get the chance. I need to attend more cons. Absolutely. And I get it. Conventions are expensive. Don't break the bank to go to a convention if you don't have the means, because it's better to actually have money on hand and take care of yourself than to make yourself go into debt for going to a convention. Conventions are a blast, but please don't put yourself into debt. And again, yeah, if you get the chance to meet Christopher Paolini, he is such a fun guy, definitely very personable, and with a lot of insight and experience. And so if you are an author looking for insights, he's definitely a good guy to talk to. I also at that same convention, I also got to have a one-on-one. I had a chance one-on-one meeting with Brandon Mole, who's one of my favorite authors. The guy in like when you meet him face to face is such an awkward duck. Like when you think like someone doing the awkward turtle, that is Brandon Mole in real life. But I love him nonetheless because he's a really nice guy. He's got some really fascinating ideas. He's very encouraging, and he's just such a sweet guy. It's really hard not to like him. And I love his Fablehaven series. Oh my gosh, Fablehaven and Beyonders. One of these days, the only reason why I have not done a review for Beyonders yet is because I don't want to spoil that book for anyone. The Beyonders trilogy, in my opinion, is one of the best fantasy series ever written. Ever. It is so good. And if anyone ever tells me that they saw the twist coming at the very end of the final book, I'll be like, you lied. You lied. There is not a single person I have met who has read the Beyonders trilogy and knew that that ending was happening. And it's so well set up. The ending to the entire series, like I almost started crying and I was laughing at the same time because it's such a relief. It's so beautiful. It's so thematically beautiful for the character arcs suddenly come full circle in just such a beautiful way. And you will not believe just how it happens. Holy cow. Read Beyonders. It is such a good book series. And the first book melted my brains too. Holy cow. Oh my gosh. Brandon Mole will probably never be able to outdo himself. I've read Dragon Watch, I've read The Five Kingdoms. I enjoyed them well enough, but holy cow, Beyonders is just on another level. For myself, I've really wanted to watch Fablehaven, even just as an inspiration for Fable of the Hunter. While I'm at it, I might just read Beyonders too. Absolutely. And here's actually something I'd say. If you want to actually get a feel for Brandon Mole, and I would, if anyone from Hollywood is right now watching, which I highly doubt they are, if you want to adapt a really great story, don't just immediately jump into adapting Fablehaven or Beyonders, because Brandon Mole has such a unique way of writing. Instead, read and adapt the Candy Shop Wars. Holy cow. Coming back to writing magic so that way even little children can understand it. The Candy Shop Wars is an epic fantasy written for kids who are 8 years old to 12 years old. So it's not a very complex story. The vocabulary is fairly simple, but holy cow. Oh my gosh, the magic in the Candy Shop Wars is brilliant. It's so much fun too. Effectively, what's happening is that you have you have witches and wizards fighting for control of this little town, and the way that they're fighting is that they are handing out magical sweets to children. and the kids are all like, at first they're all like, maybe this is wrong as accepting free candy from a stranger, and the Switch is like, oh yeah, no, I totally understand, but I'm not driving an unmarked white van, and there's literally a wizard handing out naughty candy living in a white van in the book. It's so it's so on the nose, and it works so well. Oh my gosh, but like the magic is like for instance the when these kids get jawbreakers, so long as they're sucking on the jawbreakers, they become like a jawbreaker, basically unbreakable. So like one kid puts a jawbreaker into his mouth and like throws himself down a hill that would like kill him. And these are like 8-year-old kids, 8, 9-year-old kids who, when they realize that they've got magical powers, are just doing silly stuff that 8, 9-year-olds would do. So like they're like levitating their bicycles and doing crazy jumps. They're throwing themselves off of hills. They're having fun lighting fireworks from peppermint candy, from kind of or actually not peppermint, but like cinnamon candy. So like when they eat it, they breathe fire. Oh my gosh, so simple but so fun and really really unique. Like these kids do some really crazy things actually with the candy, and it also feels in a way almost realistic because the little kids themselves are not the ones coming up with the really complicated stuff to use for the magic, but the different witches and wizards are actually telling them how to do some really crazy complicated stuff with magical candy. So yeah, another great book to read, Candy Shop Wars. Again, highly highly recommend it. So yeah. Moving on from all that, there's my I am surprised where talking about Villainous Level 99 took us right there, but hey, fun stuff. To start kind of rounding things out for the evening before I close up here, I do want to talk about Delicious in Dungeon. I just didn't have the time to put together a nice combination of footage for it. Again, just talking like simple D&D, really really well done. One of the things that makes Delicious in Dungeon really work as a story is that it runs with a very simple question. What if, in order to survive a dungeon crawl, the party doesn't have enough money and therefore must survive on eating the creatures that are within the dungeon? And that's the premise. I mean, I also have to add on to it that they're trying to save the main character's sister from being fully digested by a dragon. She's dead. They just want to get her corpse before it's fully digested, so that way they can cast a resurrection spell and bring her back to life, which is a really great D&D mission to have right there. And honestly, sometimes what brings to life really great stories is running with a specific question or idea. For my book Bleed, Steam, and Steel, it was all born from a very simple question. What if I told the story of a warlord from the perspective of a young girl who admires him? And while Bleed, Steam, and Steel did not end up becoming precisely that, I ran with that idea, and that's what led to the creation of the main character, Asuka, and everything that happens with her. Good night, Tevin. Thanks for being here. But yeah, so I ran with that particular question, and in mind, and it led to that adventure. And that's also what you see in Delicious in Dungeon. What if a party had to survive on eating the monsters within a dungeon while they're dungeon crawling? And the author and the creators of the show just have had tons of fun playing those scenarios out, and it's great. That's really what you got to do. And again, I highly recommend for anyone who has not yet seen it, The Witch and the Beast. You still have plenty of time to catch up since there's only 2 episodes to it out right now. I am really happy that the second episode fixed one of my big gripes from the first episode. The first episode just blazed through everything, and as a for the first adventure, and as a result of that, the pacing just felt off. The tension was gone, the mystery was gone, the drama was gone, and I'm really happy that with the second episode, they've really slowed it down. And by slowing things down, by slowing down the pacing, they were able to add in even more details that really help to build up this new mystery, because the main characters have been called to this town where a witch is murdering young, beautiful women, and only aiming for young, beautiful women. And the witch's MO is to make them bloat and blow up. Really gruesome stuff. And and so the main characters, when they arrive, they begin picking up on all the clues, and I like that it really slows everything down, so that way you can actually, as the viewer, already get actually some really vital clues for stuff that will become important later on. Since I've read ahead in the manga, and I know what's happening in this particular mystery, I was really shocked that that certain things were dropped. I'm not going to give away spoilers, at least on that, but there were some things I was really surprised. I was like, "Whoa, oh, that's bold," but that also helps to explain some stuff that's going to happen later on. By slowing things down, that's something that needs to be understood when writing a mystery. Mysteries need to be slower in order to give you the time to build up the characters, build the tension, and place clues. And I've been working on writing my own fantasy murder mystery story. And today I just finished editing the second to last chapter in the book. My hope is to have the book ready for publishing towards the end of this year. So I'm making good headway on it, and it was really difficult at first because I like to make things run faster than usual. And the only other books where I really slow things down have been with my Legend of the Ten Lords series, because I really want to dive deeper into all the different characters of that book, and because it's a much larger novel, I can afford to slow things down a little bit more from time to time and really get in deep with some characters. But for a murder mystery, I really had to intentionally slow things down and be very purposeful and precise with different chapters and with the things I introduce, with what I do with different characters. I had to get rid of fluff. I had to cut back on some of the action. I love writing action scenes, but it just didn't work with the necessary pacing for the story. So as I've been rereading through my book and editing everything, I have some action at the beginning to help explain the war mages, or as they call them, the marked, because the mystery is that a marked killed a general, and did it in a similar fashion to the short story Murder in the Rue Morgue by Edgar Allan Poe. Which, if you haven't read Murder in the Rue Morgue, read it. It is such a great story, and it's considered to be potentially the first detective story ever written. Right? It's at least the first detective story that we still have. And it is fantastic. Some people have even credited Murder in the Rue Morgue for inspiring Sir Arthur Conan Doyle to write Sherlock Holmes. So it's a fantastic mystery, and my upcoming book is kind of a homage to Murder in the Rue Morgue, but with magic. So I have to have some action at the beginning to help explain the magic, to help set the conflict, and introduce some of the characters. But otherwise, I have then had to really, really slow things down, which is not usually my style. But so The Witch and the Beast, catch up with it. There's only 2 episodes out right now. First episode runs really fast, which I don't think is all that great. I understand it's the first episode. They want to try to catch you with all the big stuff and the big reveal at the end of that episode. But the second episode is where it's really at, where it slows things down, and you get to relish your time with the main characters, with the new characters that are being introduced, with the murder mystery of who this witch is, why is she targeting young women and killing them. We're getting into some interesting stuff, and I like it. I really do like The Witch and the Beast, and I highly recommend it. And yeah, and actually, since right now there's footage from Chain Soldier playing, I talked last week about Chain Soldier. I haven't kept up with Chain Soldier. I watched the first episode. I got a feel for it. If I ever feel like I need to watch some ridiculous harem shenanigans this season, I could go to it. Uh, but it's not really my kind of go-to story. I've already done my reviews for The Dangers in My Heart and for the Apothecary Diaries for this week. And like I said, I've got a video coming out about Frieren. It should be coming out tomorrow, so that's something you guys can look forward to. Say there's just every season there's now just so much anime that it's hard to keep up with all of it, which is one of the reasons why, as I said, I kind of wanted to do more of these weekly live streams if possible, to keep up to date with some of the anime that I can't just dedicate videos to, have chances to have conversations with people. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much all that I've had for today. Everything from hot takes with Hazbin Hotel to Villainess Level 99, Swolo leveling, talking about magical academies and all that good jazz. So before we say adios and choose, just let me know quickly in the chat if there's any other things that you want to quickly bring up before we wrap up tonight. And while I'm giving you guys a chance to do that, I am going to take a much needed drink of water. Ah. Oh, yeah. I needed that. Say, my concluding thoughts, if you guys are typing in anything or waiting for anything, my concluding thoughts, again, coming kind of full circle around to it all, to some stuff I opened up with. Make sure you have a writing group, share your work out with other people, get feedback, and actually listen to the feedback that you get. And something I'll just add in right here. I've met a lot of novice authors who are really scared of other people reading their books, not because they fear being called out for stuff that they've written poorly, but because they're genuinely scared that someone else might take over their story and give them feedback or suggestions that will completely override whatever they're imagining and just completely just take it over. My counter to that is that so long as you are writing what you want to write, you won't have to worry about other people hijacking your story. But you need feedback from other people. You need to hear back from them about, well, what's working for your story, what isn't. And if you have something that you really like, that you're like, actually, I really want to do this, but they're like, no, you shouldn't do this. This is a really bad idea. Well, then do a little bit of pushback and not necessarily be like, no, it's totally fine. It's totally great. No. Instead, be like, okay, then if my idea didn't work this way, what if I did it instead this way? So, for instance, for one of my stories, I wanted to introduce a really horrible individual who's meant to go on a redemption story. And I'm like, one of the things that this character needs to have is that, yeah, she's not good. She will violently assault people, and sometimes in a sexual manner. I'm introducing her as a really horrible person, and this is a part of her character. I need that for certain things that are going to come later on. And I was just told, don't do this scene. Do not have her act like this. And so I was like, okay, then. What if it is instead just changed to her just being angry, lashing out, attacking someone, and then later on, I introduced that there's an element to that, this darker side of her, but we then do something different. It's introduced differently in a slightly more tasteful manner. Would that be better? And the feedback was, okay, then. So like, you need this aspect of her character that makes sense, and introducing her this way where it's not so grapey. Then you're not turning off the audience to potentially liking this character and joining her for her redemption arc. And so receiving that feedback, yeah, it's something harsh. You got to be able to have sometimes some unpleasant and harsh conversations, but having those conversations really does help. When you receive feedback, you don't have to do exactly what the person says. You can push back and change things up, but listen to what they're saying, because what they're saying will many times enhance your writing and your storytelling. All right, so we got some stuff to wrap up right here with. I decided to read ahead in the Dangers of My Heart manga, and I accidentally read all the way up to chapter 120. I'm catching up way too fast. Yeah, once you catch up, you're like, why isn't this updated more often? It's such an addicting story to read through, and it's so much fun. I love the manga for The Dangers in My Heart. From Ryan Phillips, I just wanted to say that the first episode of Hazbin Hotel was disappointing. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. Felt heavy on the exposition. The jokes just didn't land. Felt lame overall, in my opinion. All right. Say, and you know what? And I can understand that. One of the things that I definitely do want to talk about later on when I actually do a real analysis and review for Hazbin Hotel, not just simply talking about it here in a live stream, is I definitely want to talk about the differences between the pilots and where the rest of the show has gone. Because I feel like A24, even though A24 prides itself as a studio for pushing the boundaries, I think that they gave them a lot of notes to basically say reel it back a little. What's happening is that the bombastic nature of the pilot is gone for one thing. And so yeah, so there weren't as many jokes. Some of the jokes definitely didn't land, and you're right that there's a lot of exposition because the first episode, the pilot, introduces what seems to be a very straightforward idea. We need to save sinners. This second episode gives us now a timeline, and rather than just simply saying like, "Oh, the angels have decided that they're going to up the calendar and they're going to attack even sooner," instead, there was indeed a lot of exposition, and that exposition would have either been better back in the pilot, which maybe Pop didn't have all of that figured out when she made the pilot, and so that's why she didn't put it in, or it could have been better as a reveal later on, slowly drop different hints here and there. So yeah, info dump, it happens, and we got to figure out how to overcome that. Ryan Phillips, I actually do have a writing group. I started a writing group with some friends of mine to encourage each other to do more creative writing. It revolved mostly around poetry so far because it's a bit easier to write quickly. But one of my friends wrote a screenplay, and I'm hoping to post some fan fiction soon. Very fun to talk to friends about writing. Ryan, I am so happy that you have that writing group. That is incredible, and I hope that all of you have a bunch of fun with whatever you're doing, from poetry to fan fiction to screenplay. Continue to share stuff with each other, talk with each other, share, and just encourage each other more and more because oh my gosh, it is so much fun. And I really miss the early days of Camille's Harem before we even had a podcast and long before we had a YouTube channel. Or at least we're actively doing stuff with said YouTube channel. We would just meet on campus up at Northern Arizona University, up at NAU, and we would just get together for a few hours and just talk writing. Or we'd be writing there, and as we were writing, we'd be like, "Hey man, just listen to what I just wrote," and like we'd then read it back to each other. We'd ask questions. We'd write stuff up on whiteboards that we'd commandeered, and just have fun with each other in that setting. And a lot of people who saw what we were doing got like kind of jealous about it because they're like, man, look at these guys. They seem to be having so much fun. I wish I was be a part of that. We'd be like, you can be. Just you got to write stuff. And they're like, I don't want to write. And it just goes to show that not everyone is interested in being an author, and that's okay. But yeah, writing is just so much fun, and just being in a writing group, and especially if you guys can all be together in person to share this stuff and to have those shenanigans and get that instant feedback is just so great. When you don't have that in person and you have to do it all online, like what we currently have to do with Camille's Harem because we're all split across 2 states and multiple cities. It gets difficult, and it's hard to line up our schedules. Actually, now it's 3 states because Camille just recently moved, so we're spread across 3 different states, multiple cities. It's hard to line up all of our schedules and still have those kinds of moments. But it's definitely worth it to have a writing group. So dang, I need a writing group too. I wish I had people who could give active feedback on everything that I write. say ISO. I mean, you're here with us with Camille's Harem. We'll do what we can, but again, having that in person interactions is always great. So like we're here to help you out when you need it. Whenever you need it, we are here for you. But if you're able to, where you're at, find like other people who are interested in writing, even if they're not necessarily interested in writing novels. Like for instance, people who are interested in writing poetry or writing short stories, or who are even just toying around with the idea of writing, but actually never even write. Those people can actually be really great to have in writing groups. I've been with some people who actually have never written a single thing, but they're really good at coming up with ideas and talking ideas because they love stories. And having them in a writing group as well has really helped out because they're normally the ones to like be the first ones to call out when something is wrong with your story or give a new perspective on your story or really challenge you with something because their minds are just crazy and are just constantly coming up with story ideas, even if they themselves never write. So if you can even find someone like that to associate with in your area, that already would be great for getting that active in person feedback. And all I can say is you find those people by just talking. Normally, when you say, "Hey, I'm a writer and I'm writing something," you usually really quickly find someone else who's writing, and then you just strike up conversations and just talk with them. I got to learn recently that a woman that I've known for a while is an author herself. I never knew, and I brought it up because she was like, "So Lars, what have you been doing recently?" And I was like, "Oh, I've been working on a couple of books." And she's like, "Oh, you're a writer?" I'm like, "Yes, I have. I do write." And she's like, "I published a book once. My children say I should publish the sequel to it." I'm like, "Oh, you absolutely should." She's like, "What have you written?" I said, "I've published 8 books." And then she's like, "Oh." I'm like, "Please don't give me this look like we can't have a normal conversation because I've published more than you." No matter where everyone is at, everyone's at a different place in their writing journey, and you shouldn't compare yourself to other people based on how much you do. And sure, every now and then I'm like, "Man, I wish I could write as much as Brandon Sanderson," but I'm not Brandon Sanderson. I'm Lars, and I got to do what Lars is able to do, and push myself to do the best I can. So, man, well, writing is hard. It's fun, but it's hard. No wonder it scares people off. You are absolutely right about that, Ryan. Writing is hard work, but it is fun. And the hard work and the difficulties with writing are normally what scares people away. Um, Maybe it's a little bit of a dour thing to sort of to bring us home on, but um, for a lot of people, or I'd say for a lot of people who actively try to become authors, only 1 in 5 will actually ever finish their story or will ever publish or will even have a shot at being a career author. And of those 1 of 5, even fewer of them actually manage to make a good living off of being an author. And when you know that statistic, that's really daunting and scary. But that shouldn't dissuade you because as I always like to say, you need your stories. Your stories need you, and the world needs your stories. Whether you become some famous published author or anything like that, like you need to write. If you've got the desire to write, write. Come up with some great stories. If it's difficult to write, all the more reason why you should push through and see it to the end. Do what you can, write your own story, even if you never share it with the rest of the world. Maybe that story is just for you. It will have been worth writing. And as you write, your stories come to life. And that's a fantastic connection to have with works that you yourself have created. So yeah, we'll wrap it up right there. Here, you need your stories need you, and the world needs your stories. So let's all go out and write. And after almost an hour, 45 minutes, no wonder my voice is beginning to get a little scratchy here. Let's call it a night here. I'm going to get back to working on my own books. For those of you who are writing, I wish you the best of luck on your own books. If you need any sort of advice or insights into writing, or you want to share stuff, comments are open to you. You can reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk with you. And maybe next week we'll be able to again do another live stream looking at the anime of the week and having some stuff to talk about. And maybe we won't have Hazbin Hotel controversy, though I highly doubt that will be the case. And anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us here for this live stream. Hope you have a good night. Thank you, Ryan. Good night to you as well. And until next time, y'all, tschüss.